Hey, hi friends, this is Kelly Smith. I wanted to bring out a video today. I got an email that I think I've had a couple people ask the same question, so I'll just make a video about this and try to explain this. Now, please understand this. The basis of all this is my book, of course, The First Horseman, and the experience I've had with this. It's on my website, and I've had a lot of people bring up a lot of objections to this. And, in some ways I don't blame them because it's very controversial. I'm not going to deny that. It's a very big deal. It's a very unusual comparison. And I'm claiming that Trump is the Davidic servant, the servant in the last days, whatever. Davidic is something that Abraham Gileadi's come up with. He's just the servant of the last days, the forerunner of Christ before he returns again. So there's a lot of claims in the book that are very unusual for people, and they're having a hard time making that connection with them. And they have all kinds of objections. And this is one that, other people have made also. So I thought, hey, he did a very nice job. I won't give his name. I didn't ask his permission. But I did a very nice job of coming up with a response. He says, here's why I don't agree with what you're saying. Most people just yell at me and tell me I'm wrong. But, he was very nice and wrote me a nice email about a very, a legitimate question. So I'm just going to show you the email. I'm going to show you my reply, and we're going to look at the scriptures for just a minute. And hopefully, we won't solve everything today, but at least we'll get something going here. So here's the email he sent me. He says, I watch your videos. I appreciate your passion. He apparently did his PhD on the Davidic servant himself. So he says, yeah, I have no doubt that Trump is playing a special role in these last days. Some things are very important about this servant that do not support the idea that Trump is this servant as follows. So he agrees he's doing something, but he's not to the level of Davidic servant. So he goes to Isaiah 42, verses 2 and 3. So let's just go to the scriptures real quick and look that up, okay? Behold, I'm going to read verse 1, 2, and 3. Behold, my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. A bruised reed shall he not break, and the smoking flax shall he not quench. He shall bring forth judgment and truth. I also have this in the Isaiah Explorer, and this is, you can compare all kinds of different versions of Isaiah. So here's the King James Version. Here's the Abraham Gileadi's version. I looked at multiple different ones. They're all pretty much the same. So here's Abraham's version. My servant whom I sustain, my chosen one in whom I delight. Him I have endowed with my spirit. He will dispense justice to the nations. He will not shout or raise his voice to make himself heard in public. Even a bruised reed will he not break, a dim wick he shall not snuff out. He will perform the work of justice in the cause of truth. Neither shall he himself grow dim or be bruised until he has brought about justice in the earth. The isles await his law. So the claim that my friend made in this email is that this does not describe Trump in any way. And at first glance, maybe he's right. His tactic is to be a bull. Nothing wrong with that, but it does not fit the Davidic servant. Okay, so I'm gonna, what do you think about that? I mean, I can't, we're not on a Zoom call here. I can't ask you your reply or do a poll or anything like this, and so I can't really get your feed on this. But this is something that, obviously Isaiah has written. There's something about this. There's a prophecy here that applies to the last day servant. I don't think there's any question that applies to the last day servant. So what does he mean by this? Because I'm having a problem by saying that his voice is not to be heard in the street. If we look at it that way, that we are saying he doesn't have a voice, that doesn't make sense. Because, in fact, here's the next thing he talks about, according to Isaiah 49. He's hidden from the world until the time for him to begin. Trump has lived his life in the public for decades. So let's look at Isaiah 49. Let's go there. And he talks about, listen, O isles of the sea, unto me, and hearken from far. Lord hath made me from the womb, from the bowels of my mother, hath made mention of my name. And he shall make my mouth like a sharp sword. Okay, right there. He shall make my mouth like a sharp sword. On the other verse, he's saying, he shall not lift up his voice. So we got a problem right there. If we're interpreting it this way, nor causes her to be cause his voice to be heard in the street, and then all of a sudden he's saying, he made my mouth like a sharp sword, in the shadow of his hand he hit me, made me a polished shaft. Something doesn't fit there, at least according to the way people are interpreting this. How does he fit both of these scenarios? Then I said, thou art my servant in Israel, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. And then I said, I've labored in vain. I spent my strength for naught. Surely my judgment is with the Lord my God, my work in my God. And then he says, and now saith the Lord that formed me from the womb to be a servant, to bring Jacob again. Though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of the Lord. And he said, it is a light thing that thou should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that may be my salvation unto the end of the earth. How does he be a light unto the Gentiles? How does he do that without speaking? That makes no sense whatsoever. And then the main one here, thus saith the Lord, Redeemer of Israel, and his Holy One, to him whom man despiseth. This is a key. The servant has to be despised. Now Trump fits that, very much so. To him whom the nation abhorreth. I mean, come on. There's a large percentage of the United States that absolutely detests Donald Trump. He fits that perfectly. To a servant of rulers, kings shall arise, princes shall worship, and they shall choose thee. I mean, how in the world do kings see and arise without him speaking? My whole point here is I think we have to reevaluate the way we're interpreting all of these things. There's a whole bunch of things that I'll just use Davidic servant as the term. I'm calling it the first horseman, that he has to fit. There's a lot of these terms that all have to fit together and make sense to point to him. So all of a sudden right here, him whom man despiseth, the nation abhors, kings shall arise, they shall worship him. Come on. How do they do that without him speaking? So what is the interpretation? How do we do this then? He shall not lift up, nor he shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. So how do we see this now? Now a bruised reed shall he not break, and the smoking flax he shall not quench. So this is saying the voice, he should lift up the voice, a bruised reed, which means he will not harm nor hurt the weakest. Now that changes that whole thing, right? There's all kinds of stories. I hope you've seen them of Trump being, helping people in times of need. There's numerous stories. The news media doesn't want you to see them ever, because that would mean something good about him. How dare they point something good? But the reality is he had people that had their father died, and he ended up paying their entire college tuition. He had people get their cars fixed. There's a whole bunch of stories. This fits him perfect. Without harm the weakest. He's a man of justice. It isn't about, our current legal system is a mess. It's all about who has the most money. It isn't about justice. And that's part of, a big message in Isaiah is how much the Lord is angry at our current legal system, because it's all for bribes and for reward, and the widows and fatherless are completely ignored. That's a very big theme throughout the whole book of Isaiah, and how dangerous how wrong that is. And so, what does this mean? He shall not lift up. Let me close this. Nor he shall not cry nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. If we go back to the Explorer here and look at the Hebrew of this, they're both the same. They're close enough, King James and Abraham's version. So let's look at the Hebrew. Okay, Hebrew obviously reads right to left. So look at the words. You'll see them down here. If I go here, it'll show them right here. I can change this to whatever I want, but you'll see them down here too. So not do cry, not lift up, not to be heard in the street, cause his voice. Now, obviously, translation to English, I don't know Hebrew at all. I'm not a scholar at all in that. But obviously they've had to rearrange things to fit from Hebrew to English. So it makes sense. But notice what it's saying here. My servant whom I sustain, my chosen one whom I delight, I have endowed him with my spirit. He will dispense justice to the nations. So that has to be somebody that speaks. He will not shout or raise his voice to make himself heard in public. So what does that mean? I think the only thing this means is that he's not a low-level, in the street preacher that's just trying to get attention. I think he's way above that. He's dealing with very high-level things. He's dispensing justice to the nation. He's he won't even hurt a bruised reed. I think this all means that he's just on a much higher level. He isn't just down in the street like so many others are, trying to get attention, trying to get some kind of, obviously, income for what they're doing. They're just loud and noisy and stuff, and they're not really interested in justice. They're interested in themselves. I honestly think that's all we can take from this. It doesn't make sense to claim that he cannot speak or he's silent, because we've already seen multiple verses of this. Well, but I think that's what he is. It just means he's on a higher level. So that's the way I think we have to look at this, because it doesn't make sense otherwise. So let me go back to the next question. He says, I don't have scripture to back it up, but I dream that this servant will be a member of the church. Now, I go into lengthy detail in my book about what I think this means, because I do agree that eventually he will be a member of the church. David was anointed in secret. And King David, the Davidic servant, that's all kind of thing. David was anointed in secret so nobody would know. Somewhere along the line, I believe that Moses is a type and shadow of Trump. All the episodes in his life are things that are going to happen. Moses was not raised in righteousness. He was raised in the richest country of the world. At the time, he was taught the ways of Pharaoh. He was taught the ways of the world. He became a prince of Egypt, and he saw, became a builder, all those kind of things, which I think is interesting. He's a builder, and Donald Trump is a real estate developer. Very interesting. I think there's a lot of parallels here. And when Moses saw something that wasn't just, he, saw this man that was being beaten, a Hebrew slave, unjustly by this taskmaster. He went and killed the taskmaster. He instituted justice. And then he escaped to the desert. It wasn't like the movie The Ten Commandments where there's some kind of love triangle here. No. He escaped on his own. Went across the desert. You know the story. Married Zipporah, daughters of Jethro, all that stuff. And he did that when he was 40 years old. When he's 80 years old, he has an experience in the Mount of Sinai, sees the burning bush, which is obviously a tree of life vision. He saw God. It was a tree of life experience that so many others have had in Scripture, Nephi and Lehi being the most prominent. But so anyway, he has this experience. He's been given a mission by God to go back. He goes back to Egypt, uses the power of God to perform miracles, and frees the house of Israel from Egypt through all of those, kills the Pharaoh's armies in the Red Sea. And all of that is a type and shadow of things that are going to happen. I propose that Trump is going to have somewhere around his 80th year, which is next year, a year from this month, as a matter of fact. I'm not saying it's on his birthday. I'm not, it doesn't have to be exactly that. I'm just saying that it's most likely that he'll have some kind of an experience in his 80th year. And he says he'll be high and lifted up. He'll have, and Christ himself even says, yet I will heal him. He's going to have a dramatic experience. All of this stuff, and the whole world's going to know it. And this is going to be where all the big change takes place. And so I'm hoping this is the way I see it. So I'm hoping this helps. I hope this makes sense to people. I hope this kind of answers some of these questions, because there's a lot of things going to happen, and I hope we're ready for that. And I hope that this helped answer this question for you. All right? Okay, thanks very much.